folks. Good evening. Welcome again to another Money Space with me, Kalu Aja. On this space, of course, we're talking money, the economy, and finance. And of course, today we are going to talk about the economy. I want to have three topics today. I'm not sure if we can do all three, so we're going to do one if we can. And then, of course, if we've got that time, we're just going to hop in and do the others. But the main topic today is going to really be about the value added tax, what we call VAT, right? I want to just take a deep dive into VAT in Nigeria. What is it all about? How can we boost it? And all that kind of stuff. If we can get through VAT, of course, we'll then talk about the other topics, which is going to be, like I've said, it's going to be the pension reform. There's a new proposal to increase the amount or the contribution that the employers will make. We're going to talk about that briefly, and of course talk about power. There's something about power that we're going to just touch on. I'm not sure if we can do all that because I think VAT is going to be very, very important. So we'll try our very, very best to have a really, really great discussion, right? What we do here is to bring those topics that are very, very important to you folks, be it personal finance and be it the economy like today, so we can get more understanding. And then with that understanding, we can have more intelligent conversations and probably pass this along to decision makers that you know. If you are one of those guys that know the quote-unquote big bet, this is going to be a great topic for you to save and to share, right? This particular topic, because it's going to talk about how VAT is set up and how can a local government guy or a state governor increase his VAT allocation. Again, I'm getting my inspiration. If you know, there was an article that was done, I think it was this week, by the Cable. There have been lots of these articles done where they basically line up the VAT collections and disbursements by states or by regions. And this one came across my desk. It caught my eye. Lots of folks saw it. And folks were asking, why is a particular region, the Southeast region, getting so much when they contribute so little? Why is Lagos getting so little when they contribute so much? If you know the answers to that, we're going to talk about it here on this space. Again, we're live on YouTube, and I'm going to share the slides on X, Twitter as well, so that way you can follow. I've got lots of great visuals as always. So let's just get going, right? And again, this is just, I was going to sharing what I was going to talk about, power, branding, and reform. But let's go straight into VAT, right? So what is VAT? Before we had VAT, we used to have what was called the sales tax. If you live abroad or if you live in Nigeria in those olden days, you know what sales tax is. It's that tax that you pay when you consume. If you go to the store, the gas station, really most of the stuff you buy, you pay a sales tax on it. And abroad, it's differentiated according to where you are buying or where you are located. It's collected at a very, very local level. So if you go to a gas station, you buy gas, you pay sales taxes in that gas station, right? Some states don't even have sales taxes, talking about America. In Europe or in the UK, they have VAT. And if you notice, when you live in the country, you can get your VAT back. They've changed laws a bit, but essentially it's a local tax on consumption. That's the key word for you there, consumption. Because unlike sales tax where you buy and then you pay, that's a regressive tax. Because what happens is that if you buy and you earn 1 million and I earn 10,000, we both pay the same sales tax. And if you buy and you're a business and you are adding value, you pay the same tax as I'm paying. But with the VAT, it's the final consumer that is paying. So if you look at the slide I'm sharing, you generate VAT through economic activity. Simple enough, right? So there's retail, manufacturing, anything that is economic in nature. You generate a receipt or a transaction. That transaction is what is being taxed. Is in Nigeria, we have a funny system. The VAT at the local level is collected by the federal government, not the local institution. And then local institution then shares VAT. That's another thing that is unique in Nigeria. We share VAT. So VAT does not stay where it's being collected. Hence that question at the top of the space, where you have states receiving more VAT that they generate and states paying more VAT than they generate. So we share VAT. We have a vertical formula and a horizontal formula. The horizontal is where we're going to pay particular attention to, where I want you guys to really focus on. Vertical is simple. Federal gets 10%. They used to get 15%. President Tinubu took it down to 10%. This was his give to allow the states to pass his VAT reform. And we're going to see what that reform was as we go along, right? States get 55% and local governments get 35%. That's the vertical sharing. But when it gets interesting is how we do the horizontal sharing. When the money gets to the states, how is it shared? Why does Lagos get this? Why does Abia get this? How it is done right now. I think we'll skip that. We'll see it later on in the slide. I want to really focus on that. That's where you're going to find a bit of the back and forth of people that say, hey, VAT should be reformed and all that. So just to emphasize, anything you do that should generate economic activity, there's going to be a VAT attached to it. Why is this important? The more economic activity in the state, the more spending in the state, the more VAT is generated. Economic activity does not mean, as most people would emphasize, does not mean just business. It doesn't mean if you have a market, that's the only economic activity. If you go to the bank, if the federal government issues a contract, and that contract is executed in the state. So, for instance, federal government says, hey, we're going to equip primary schools, and we buy a computer, and you invoice that computer in your state. That's consumption in the state, but the contract has been issued in Abuja. So where do you think the tax goes to, Abuja or the state? It depends on where the invoice is created. Where is the VAT collected? So you can find a situation whereby you have economic activity, maybe a government contract, or even VAT on imports. Let's say Akwa Ibom imports aeroplanes for Akwa Ibom Air, but those planes are invoiced in Lagos or Abuja. Then the VAT does not go to Akwa Ibom, it goes to Lagos or Abuja. That's where the invoice was done because that's where the economic activity happened. Again, you start to see the nuances. It's not just if you have a market. It's not just if you have Balogun or Aba market, but where is the invoice actually printed? That's where you have the economic activity happening. We're not yet talking about how that economic activity is calculated. All we are saying is that if you have economic activity, that is what VAT is capturing, and that is what is capturing in that particular location. Let's go further into our slides, right? Now let's talk around how is this VAT paid? Like I said from the very top, it is paid by the ultimate user, right? So when you are a business, let's say you sell generators, you import generators through Nigerian ports. You pay for generators at the ports in Lagos, so you paid your VAT to the customs. But you're not the one going to pay the VAT because you import generators, but you have then your subcontractors that are maybe Abia State, Kwara State, and Borno. They come to your shop in Lagos and buy generators from you. They pay you, so you charge them a cost and you charge them a VAT. So they then have the VAT, right? So you've charged them VAT and they pay you VAT as well. It is the net of what you charge and the net of what you pay, i.e., you paid government, then you also collected from your suppliers. It's that net that you are paying. That's how VAT works. So it's the final guy. If those consumers, those guys that have bought your generator and they go to Borno State, if the guy in Borno uses that generator in his own house, because there's no final consumer, he then becomes the final consumer, right? But if he sells that generator to somebody else, he's going to charge that person a VAT, correct? And then that person then becomes the final user of that commodity or the final consumer. Then that person pays the VAT. Why is it important to us? Again, look at how, if you notice what I've said, I've contradicted myself. I said that it is where economic activity happens that VAT is calculated. But I'm also telling you here that it's the final consumer that is paying the taxes. So which is correct? They're both correct. The guy paid in Lagos, but it's being consumed in Borno. But where is that VAT invoice issued? If that guy consuming in Borno has a head office in Lagos or Abuja, and when he paid that VAT, he invoiced Lagos or Abuja, then it doesn't matter what the Borno guy is doing. It's between Lagos and Borno. Do you get it now? It's where not just where the economic activity is happening, but who is invoicing. We're moving, guys. We're moving. So it's important to understand that point, that it is not just where, but who is doing the invoicing. And this is a better slide to show you how VAT is calculated. There's input VAT, there's output VAT. So essentially you are paying the net input minus output. That's essentially what you are paying when you are paying VAT. These things are important. I'm building you up towards crescendo. And guys, at the very end, if you have a question, you want to speak, just request to speak, and I'll give you the mic. But this is very important, because when we now get to later slides, these initial slides would make more sense to you. You'll see why I'm emphasizing the location of the activity vis-a-vis where it is invoiced. So this is what you pay. You pay the net VAT. It's not what you pay at the Lagos port that is your net. It's what you pay less what others pay you. So you keep on remitting, but the final person, because he's consuming and can no longer pass on that VAT, then he then takes on the total VAT. That's the whole idea, right? Okay, so let's now go into more deeper questions, right? What items or what economic activity generate the most VAT? Because when you look at VAT, if you look at that slide that Cable News did, you will notice that many states have a lot of VAT. Oyo has a lot of VAT. Ogun didn't have a lot of VAT, right? Abia didn't have a lot of VAT. Borno had a lot of VAT. So what is happening that states are generating VAT and some states are not generating VAT? So with this slide, we'll try to look at activities that generate very, 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 very high VAT. Now, this is where, like I said, if you know anyone in the government, I want to give the government guy expo. This is where you have to pay attention to. Not all activity is the same. When there's activity at the retail level, right, you generate a very, very high proportion of VAT. Remember, let's take food. Let me give you an example with food. Food is not vatable. So if you are buying rice, if you are buying maize from a farmer, you're not paying VAT on that. But what about the generator or the diesel to make the food? That's vatable, right? What about the transportation to carry the workers back and forth, or the hotels or the airlines, all that, the electronic money transfer, all that is vatable. So the food itself is not, but the value chain can be VAT, you can pay VAT on the value chain. So if you look at the slide we're sharing, retail and trade generates an enormous amount of VAT. So when you have supermarkets, markets, distributors, remember what I said in my example at the ports, you will generate a large number of VAT. What about food processing? Food is not being VATed, but the processing generators. You are buying, importing chemicals for the food. You are buying polyethylene bags for the food. All that is vatable. Textiles, all that is vatable. Very, very high vatable. Telecommunications, you are making phone calls, you are receiving phone calls, you are using data. Very, very high usage there. Hospitality and tourism, you are going to the restaurant to eat that food. You're going to pay VAT on the plate of jollof rice, but the food itself, the rice is not vatable, but you are paying this for the service, i.e. VAT, right? Accommodation, you are building and all that. Oil and gas, very, very high. You are exporting oil, you're exporting gas, very, very high. It's vatable. So this is Expo 1 to say not every activity is vatable. If you have a state where you are just farming, you farm maize, you put maize like maybe you are in a state where you farm rice. You farm rice, you accumulate the rice, you put it in a bag, and you sell that rice. You are not going to generate a large number of VAT, because the food itself is not vatable. There's a lot of economic activity around the rice. But because you are not adding value on the value chain, you're not doing production, you're not doing post-packaging or storage, you're not generating VAT. So many states fall into this category where they are looking at activity. We're the number one in rice production, we're number one in yam, we're number one in cattle, but we're not seeing the VAT receipt. This is why, because we are simply doing activities, which is economic activity, but the VAT for that is happening where the process is vatable. Good example, if you grow rice, and you package that rice as paddy rice, and you sell that rice to a farmer, to a processor. The processor in Lagos takes your paddy rice, mix it into bagged rice, and puts that rice in a box, right? Or sells that rice to Sheraton Hotel. Where do you think the VAT will be created? To be created where the rice is eaten in Sheraton Hotel, not where the rice is grown in your particular state. So that's our first expo. It is not all activity that is VATable, but when you have the retail, the manufacturing, the services, hospitality, you get a large number of VAT. That's why you see Lagos is the number one in VAT in Nigeria, because everything you listed here is happening in Lagos, including oil and gas. Even if Lagos has oil, but even before Lagos found oil, Lagos was getting a lot of VAT from oil and gas. So let's go a bit deeper, guys. This is the key slide. This is the key slide. Again, if you're paying attention, this is the key slide for you to show your senator or your governor why your state is not generating VAT. There are companies that are exempt from VAT in Nigeria. So if you do below 25 million annual turnover, you are then exempt from VAT. So what does that mean? That means if you have a state where you have a large number of VATable activities, so you have a hotel, and that hotel is VATable, but that hotel is making less than 25 million a year, then you're not going to get a lot of VAT from that state. But if the hotel is making above 25 million, then they have to register for VAT, right? Not profit, turnover, right? On a 12-month basis. So again, what's it telling you? That we're trying to give the consumer a tax break by saying we're not going to tax everything you do. But in doing so, what we're doing is that we're saying going to certain states and saying, yeah, you have small hotels. This company is exempt from paying VAT. So when you have those states that have all these small hotels dotted all around, they're not going to pay VAT. But if you go to a mega city or a mega state in Lagos that's got a big high skyscraper hotel, right, they pay VAT there. So even though hospitality is a VATable activity, and we've seen on our slides before that hospitality is going to give you a large number of VATable transactions, because you're small, if you're doing those Airbnb type thing, you're doing 30 December, they're not VATable. It's below 25 million annual turnover. So that's again why you see certain states that seem to have a lot of activity, but do not pay or generate a lot of VAT. You have the activity, but the activity is either at a subsistent level or below 25 million. Again, are you seeing where we're going to with this? We're trying to walk to the answer. So if you're a governor and you have a state and your state is subsistence, you've got to scale that activity up from subsistence to more micro or SME level, where they can then be able to charge VAT. Either you group them together or you scale them up, right? That's the point that we are making with this. Now, let's look at the number one top VAT players in Nigeria, and then it starts to make sense to you where we are going to with this. The number one paying sector in Nigeria is manufacturing. So remember what I said, it's not the growing of the food that is going to get you money if you're a governor under VAT. It's the value addition. So you are growing rice, you're not going to make any VAT from that because you don't do VAT food, raw food. But when you're manufacturing, there's VAT. You are packaging that rice into a package. You are buying paper, polyethylene, chemicals, buses, diesel, solar panels. All that is VATable. So the number one contributor to VAT in Nigeria is the manufacturing, guys. Nearly 30% of VAT comes from manufacturing. So where's the number one location for manufacturing in Nigeria? It's Lagos. Simple. So the Southwest Lagos is going to be number one in terms of VAT in Nigeria. But I hear you saying there's manufacturing happening outside Lagos. Yes, and that's what we're capturing. Kano, Kaduna have very, very high VAT. Oyo has very, very high VAT. Why? There's manufacturing there, not at the subsistence level, but at a level above that 25 million. We're going back to that former slide. If you just do the small scale SME, you are making one shoe, two shoes, even 100 shoes, and your total turnover is less than 25 million, you're not going to show up in the VAT numbers, right? What's the next? ICT, telecom, Airtel, MTN. That's number one. Number two, about 20%. Mining and quarrying, that's oil and gas, is number three, about 12%. Then you go to banks. Banks are about 10%. Before you go to public admin and defense, this is where Kaduna will shine. Because you have in Kaduna, you have the depot, you have NDA, you have nearly all the security services are in Kaduna and Abuja. So there's going to be a lot of VAT payable on their contract that they are issuing. Ministry of Internal Affairs, prisons. If you have a prison in Makurdi, and that prison is buying bed sheets, where is the contract being issued for the bed sheets? Is it in Makurdi or in Abuja? In Abuja. So the public admin guys, which is not central Abuja, will get that contract, not the location that is using the VAT. Then the last is going to be your wholesale trade, which is just 5%. So again, you see, wholesale trade in Nigeria is doing just 5% of VAT. But if you look at our previous slides we showed you, wholesale guys are the highest potential generators of VAT. But why they're doing very, very low here? Because it's all subsistence. If you go to Balogo, how many shops there make 125 million, right? And that's Balogo that is very, very big. Why if you go to Onitsha, how many shops there make 125 million? So while wholesale trade has got the scale and the numbers, one factory in one location can generate more VAT than thousands of market women. Just one factory, and that's what you're seeing here. So this manufacturing again is going to be your Dangote cement, your Boa cement, but that's the point. That's where the value is being added. And where are those companies? Where is Dangote cement? Where are those companies? That's where you see the VAT being created. So again, if you're a governor, it's not going to look for foreign investors, right? Look for local investors. Try to get the Dangotes to come to your state and to open up factories in your state. Because if you open up factories in your state, then you are able to generate more VAT. Get MTN to come to your state. Get Airtel, get Dangote, get Bua, get the oil and gas guys to come to your state. They give you more revenues than going to chase foreigners abroad to come to your state, because you're getting this VAT, and VAT is basically coming back to you vertically and horizontally. Oh, but I come to that. So that's what this slide is showing you, where you should focus your efforts on. If you're a local government guy, if you're a state guy, this is where you should focus your attention to. Again, guys, if you want to speak, I think I've got 2 slides left. Just request to speak, and I will add you. Now, let's get to the meat. Let's get to the meat of it. This is just the companies that are paying that VAT that I showed you. The number one company paying VAT in Nigeria is MTN, then Airtel, then Dangote Cement, then Dangote Refineries, then the banks in Nigeria. So these are the top 5 VAT paying companies in Nigeria. All these companies, MTN is in Lagos, Airtel is in Lagos, Dangote Cement is in Lagos. I know they have a manufacturing plant in Kogi, but the head office is in Lagos. The refinery is in Lagos. All the banks, I think apart from one, have their head office in Lagos. That's why Lagos will remain the number one VAT generating and collecting state in Nigeria. We've not yet gone to how it's distributed. We're just talking about how it is collected. And you are seeing how the winners are determined in Nigeria. So you want to ask yourself, okay, when I make my calls in Kogi, I make my calls in Enugu, why is MTN in Lagos cutting my VAT? We're going to get to that. But for now, these are the VAT paying companies in Nigeria, the top 5. This tallies what I showed you earlier, which was the manufacturing, the information tech, the mining, the financial services, and then the retail. So the top 5 guys, there's no retail guy here. These are the big boys, even in terms of market capitalization. The Nigerian stock exchange are the big boys that you have on the market, right? So let's now go into where it now gets juicy. You know, earlier last year, 2025, when we hear all this tax reform, many people believe that the tax reform was really targeted at you guys. You think that the whole tax reform was done to increase your pay or to increase your... No. When Tinubu first started tax reform, nobody was paying attention. We were watching this clearly for you guys, right? And President Tinubu, to his credit, tried to change the formula for how revenues are shared in Nigeria. He tried to, right? And what he tried to do, which is again, I'm commending him, was he said he was going to change the formula for how we share revenues in Nigeria. He was going to reduce what we call the share that we use for population. and increased the derivation. So let me explain this to you. Remember, I said that when Nigeria generates any revenues, whether it's VAT, whether it's oil, whether it is electronic money transfer, we share that money through FAC, through a formula. And in my view, is the worst thing that Nigeria is doing. We share it, number one, according to what we call minimum responsibility of states. That means once you are a state, you're going to get 40% of whatever revenues is created. So if Bielsa exports crude oil, that's fine. Thank you, Bielsa. We're going to get 40% of Bielsa exporting crude oil. That's every state will get 40%. Then we then do population, which is about 30%. So by just being a state with high population, you're going to get nearly 70% of what's available to you. You're going to ask me a question. What about healthcare? What about water and all that? Those things don't matter in Nigeria. The reason why you don't have water education in your state is because the states are not incentivized to create and give you clean drinking water or primary schools in your state. Those combined, water, education, health combined, is less than 5% of how revenues are shared in Nigeria. The bulk of the revenues in Nigeria, 40%, is shared on equality and then population. So if you're a governor, why would you bother building water supply for the people in your state? It doesn't make any sense. Focus on population. That's why Nigeria has never had a census that everyone has agreed with. Because if you can get high population numbers in Nigeria, you can get revenues in Nigeria. So why focus on water, education, when all they've told you to do is be a state, get 40%, and then of course do population and get 30%. Land mass is give or take. Is it land mass in Nigeria? Is it 30 or 20%? Just by having land in Nigeria, you get 20 or 30% of the revenues. Doesn't make any sense. So Lagos State has tiny land mass, but Lagos State generates the bulk of the VAT. So according to the formula, Lagos State will first of all generate $1 billion, right? Then they'll give Lagos State 40%, first of all. They'll give Lagos 40, they'll give Abia 40, because both of us are states. Lagos take 40, Abia take 40. Then they'll come to population. Oh, Lagos, you have more population than Abia. So take your 30% of your population. Just rough calculation, don't take my words literally. Take 30% of your population. Abia, take 30% of your population. So Lagos would now get more than Abia because Lagos has more population. Then they look at land mass, they'll say, oh, Lagos, you have a very small land mass. Abia has more land mass than Lagos. So Abia take more than Lagos. This is Lagos money they're sharing to Abia because Abia has more land. Doesn't make any sense. The wealth is created in Lagos, but it's being shared land mass, population, and Lagos has half of the local government that Kano has. So what President Tinubu tried to do was to change that formula to say that, listen, let us reward states that are creating wealth. And I give you a good example. There's only one deep sea port in Nigeria, and it's in Lagos. And who built it? It's not the federal government, it's not even the state government. It was built by a private concern from Singapore. So the Singapore guys came to Nigeria, partnered with Lagos State government. Lagos State government had 20% equity. They built the deep sea port. If you understand what deep sea ports are, it means that when a ship is coming from America, it doesn't have to go into the port. It can stay in the deep sea, offload and go. So it's very efficient. So once you have a deep sea port, more cargo will come to Lagos than going to, say, Lagos Apapa or Benin or even Togo, because it's faster for them to offload on the high sea and move on. Number two, you can get bigger ships. So a deep sea port is an investment by Lagos State, let's call it like that, right, to boost efficiency. Where should the revenues from that investment by Lagos and the guys from Singapore go to? What is the business of, say, Abia or Katsina in sharing that revenue that Lagos has created? You see the problem? So if you keep on sharing that revenue, why would I, if I'm the governor of Abia, why would I bother to invest in a deep sea port of my own when I can, whatever Lagos is doing, I'm going to get 40% through equality, 30% through population, and 20% through land mass? Makes no sense. So I'm nearly getting 80% by doing nothing. So President Tinubu said, okay, well, look at what we're going to do. We're going to make the population 60%. 60. So that means if you are Kano and you have groundnut pyramid, you keep 60% of the VAT you generate from taxing the groundnut value chain. You see the point? If you do that, you are incentivizing Kano farmers to go back to farm, because when they sell groundnuts and they process groundnuts, they keep more of the revenues from groundnut according to 60% derivation. If you take back to your tax reform agenda, that's when the governors from the north came out and said, no, we're not going to do this. They were against it. They fought the president, and the president had to re-elect and change it to this formula where we have derivation of only 30%. So not much has changed. If you look at the VAT sharing formula, it's still 50% equality. So all states for VAT get 50%, not even 40, 50% for VAT. Population was now changed by 10% from 30 to 20. Then derivation then went to 30%. What does this mean for VAT? It means that if you make your phone call in Aba, then MTN has got to take 20%, 30% of that phone call in just, again, rough words, and give it to Aba. And then the other 70% will now go to equality and population. So this then means that the more you are able to generate those activities in your state that pay or generate transactions and invoices, the more you can generate VAT. That's one thing that President Tinubu did that is very, very good, because he has now given the states the ability to generate more income from VAT if you invest in your state. So if a state governor brings a company in to Lagos, to a state, and that state is able to generate more economic activity, they can retain 10% more. It's better than 20%. And I prefer the 60. And that's why, I think when the president lost that battle, I tweeted that he lost. He didn't really have his ducks in a row. He went to fight without having his ducks in a row and was easily beaten. But he should have done better and gotten more. But he got to 30%. So let's look at the implication of that 30% to revenues in Nigeria. This is where it now gets interesting, guys. So I'm going to compare two states. I'm going to compare Lagos State with Abia State. Lagos State with Abia State. So what happened when the president changed the VAT formula from the old to a new scheme? In the old scheme, Lagos State got a very, very high percentage of the VAT sharing. Why? Because the headquarters of the companies in Nigeria are in Lagos. And based on where the invoice is created, then Lagos would naturally get the share of the VAT. So that means when MTN in the past did VAT, it just pays from Lagos. So Lagos will simply say, hey, the VAT for all of Nigeria is the VAT for Lagos. And they just pay, and Lagos gets an advantage. Tinubu changed that a bit. He says now Abia would get a share of 30% of the calls. I don't just take it as simple as that, of the calls that are then made in Abia. So between Abia calling and the guy receiving, if I call Kogi, Abia and Kogi will share that 30% because that's where we are deriving that economic activity from. No longer just Lagos 100%, but Abia and Kogi, if we're making those calls, we share. So in the old system, Lagos got very, very high. In the new system, Lagos is still highest because you can't move that advantage. But their advantage has been reduced from that 30 downwards. So Lagos is actually giving away potential revenues if the other states can grab it. That's what this basically means, because derivation is now open. So if Abia does not make calls, it goes to Lagos, if you put it that way. But if Abia makes calls, they are able to claim a higher share of derivation. But Lagos still got its strength. The head office is in Lagos. So Lagos will lose some share on consumption. It won't lose that share based on equality and population. If anything, Lagos will gain more because more Nigerians are moving to Lagos. So the population of Lagos is going higher. The higher the population of Lagos, the more VAT Lagos will retain. If people are leaving your state to Lagos, you are losing VAT. So as a governor, what should you do? You should be looking for ways to keep people in your state, not building airports. Airports take people out of your state. You can say it's bringing them in, but you should build structures that keep the youth in your state. What do the youth want? Opportunities, internet, Housing. No youth wants to live in his parents' home or in a BQ. So if you're a state governor and you built the internet, you made it free in your state, you built accommodation, you created jobs in your state, then more young people stay in your state, and then when they consume, your VAT goes up. That's the expo right there. Right there. The Abia State will get more revenues because they have increased the revenue share based on consumption. And the revenue share is leaving Lagos to any state that is willing to increase consumption. You have to increase consumption by human bodies in the state, not by having people leave your state to go to other states. So if you compare Lagos and Abia, old and new, Lagos actually are not at a disadvantage. They've lost a bit. They haven't lost their numbers of naira flowing, but they've given up a huge advantage to the other states in Nigeria to take over or to earn more. Very important point. But Lagos is going to be Lagos. No state in Nigeria is going to beat Lagos. No state is going to build a new port or build a new airport anytime soon. So Lagos is going to be a separate animal on its own. Let's compare Lagos or Abia, right? Let's compare Abia with, say, let's pick a state. Let's say with Kwara. Let's compare Lagos and Kwara. Why Kwara is just an ordinary state, right? Just an ordinary state. Kwara has no international airport like Lagos. I know they have one, but there's no international airport like Lagos. They don't have a seaport. They don't have a population. So let's compare what would happen in the old and the new scheme under Kwara, this new scheme. So in the old scheme, Abia got very, very low share of VAT in the old scheme. Same with Kwara. Kwara also got a low share in the old scheme, but their share was higher than Abia. So the share of Kwara State was higher than Abia. Why? Kwara has more federal institutions in Kwara than Abia. So they can invoice more in Kwara than Abia. Remember, equality 50, land mass 20, population 30. So Kwara got more in the old system than Lagos, than Abia. Now in the new system, who is going to gain? Abia gains more than Kwara. Kwara would have a moderate gain. Abia would have a significant gain. Why is Abia's gain significant? Because Abia has got a potentially higher consumption because of the Aba market. There are markets in Kwara, but Aba has the Aba market and consumption, i.e., when we say consumption, we mean the invoicing of that consumption can happen in Abia 10% more because we changed the formula. So potentially, Abia is going to benefit more from the increase of consumption to 30%. Kwara is still going to benefit, but because you are now moving to a consumption-based calculation, right, then you're going to see that Abia will then have slightly more edge than Kwara in terms of how it's able to attract investments going forward, i.e. attract VAT. The numbers for now, look at 2025, Kwara did 14 billion in Q1 for VAT. Abia just did 2.9 VAT. So understand the points I'm making. Let's be very, very clear on what I'm saying. Kwara will improve its VAT because every state in Nigeria has gotten an extra 10 points from Lagos. But because we're going more to consumptive invoicing, if Abia can organize itself because it has a larger market economy than Kwara, it can then get more. This is not just Abia, but any state with a consumptive economy where it is invoicing. The largest cattle market in Nigeria is in Yobe. There's also one in Bauchi. Those two markets, if the state governors can say we're going to invoice our cattle before we send them to Lagos, then their share of VAT will go up if it is above 25 million. But what does that mean? That means that you can't invoice if you're below 25 million. You also can't invoice if you're a small company. So if I'm the governor of that state, what am I doing? I want to get them together into a cooperative or company. Then that single cooperative or company can invoice cattle as one unit Collect VAT before you send them to Lagos. If you don't do that, when the cattle gets to Lagos, Lagos will collect the VAT when they process them. That's essentially what's going to happen. Why Abia? Someone's asking me already in the tweet, but every state, why Abia? Because only in Nigeria, there's only one made in Nigeria. There's only Aba made. There's no Owerri made. There's no Enugu made. There's no Abia made. There's no Ebonyi made. There's only in Nigeria Aba made. So, but Aba is not taking advantage of that consumptive trade. Why? Remember the earlier slides I showed you? They have many businesses that are below 25 million. They are also not invoicing VAT because in the past, they cannot invoice VAT. Into the future, they can. If they invoice more VAT, they retain more VAT because they're able to keep more. 30% is going to via derivation. So if you're a state governor, you have a lot of work to do. You have to go and educate people and say, this is what you have to do. Not just education, you've got to formalize informal markets. All this Balogo market, Aba market, Numan market, you've got to go there and explain to the market folks, if you are invoicing and not doing VAT, the state is losing revenues, number one. But you can't invoice if you are below 25 million. So can we have a central authority or invoicer that can invoice all the goods that leave the market? Go and think about that. But that's what you need to do. And I'm sharing that slide now. This is the expo slide. If you can get your state, your local government area, or your town to invoice VAT, then you are increasing that which is going to stay back in your state because of derivation. Most of the Southeast states do not do this. They have large markets. Onitsha market, largest open air market in Sub-Saharan Africa. Aba market, largest SME cluster in Sub-Saharan Africa. Nnewi, largest automotive cluster in Sub-Saharan Africa. But they are not formalizing those markets. They are not invoicing those markets. So the impact could be very, very high and it's very, very difficult. That's why they are not generating VAT. That's why states like Borno that are more government, there's an insurgency, so the government is spending money in Borno. It's being invoiced either at the federal or at the state level because you are buying blankets, airtel for the troops that are fighting the insurgency. So it's a bit organized than a crowded, dispersed market where you have this one selling spare parts, this one selling coke. It's dispersed. That's the difference. That's why you see Borno. There's more invoiceable activity. It's not just the activity. Like I said, there's only Abame. So Borno should not be getting more, if you look at it in terms of VAT, than a market like Aba. But if you don't formalize, if you don't collect the data and the invoice, you can't do you can't wish it in. So number one, formalize your markets. Number two, improve your consumption data reporting. If you don't go and say, we are collecting VAT, we are consuming here, want to collect VAT here, nobody will do it for you. Number three, build infrastructure to attract business. Again, remember, it's not infrastructure. You are attracting your own population. You are saying to your people, don't leave to go to the cities. If you have Ebonyi, you should be building infrastructure to keep people in Ebonyi. Why? So they can consume in Ebonyi, so you can attract VAT. Another example, you make rice in Ebonyi. You are selling the rice as paddy rice. You should be doing the rice of whatever in Ebonyi. So you capture the VAT for value of transition in Ebonyi State. Strengthen Nigerian Revenue Service collaboration. You should be going to hug Nigerian Revenue Service. You should have an office of NRS in every market in your state. So if you have an office in Aba market, the NRS guys will basically go there and collect the VAT. And it stays more. Remember, VAT is collected by the federal. States cannot collect VAT. But states can create the structure to allow VAT to be collected. And of course, taxpayer educational digital tools. That's what I'm doing here. They're not paying me to do this here, right? But I'm doing it here for the states. So like I said, if you have a big guy in government, you can borrow this video and show to them. This is how you want to do it. You're not going to grow VAT by copying Lagos, by saying we're going to build our own coastal road. You don't have the money. Lagos has been the federal capital before Nigeria was created. Right? So you can't match Lagos. And they're not sitting on their arms. They've just built a deep sea port. Right? They just built a deep sea port. That's a killer, a major advantage that you cannot eliminate. So don't copy Lagos. And don't say you want, do what they are doing, but do it at a local level. Formalize your markets. Even in Lagos, if Lagos today goes and starts to formalize their markets, improve their consumption data, they start to build infrastructure in other Ikorodu, in Ekpe, away from the normal Ikeja and Lekki. Their VAT will triple also. And Lagos will do this faster because the guys they have working for them are very educated. So it's not just a question of saying on Twitter that, listen, you are being what's the word? I don't think you're going to go there, but you've got to look at this as the economics. I don't agree with all this VAT sharing and all that, but this is how they want to share it, and you walk to the answer. If the government has said we're going to share VAT based on population, then keep your population, use your population. You don't need 20 million. You need the transactions to happen. A long time ago, Navy people said you have to open up a head office in a Navy before you open up everywhere. That's a good first step. Number two, those companies that have head office in Navy, are they invoicing their goods in Navy? Let me give you in closing before I bring on additional ones to speak. Let me give you in closing. If you can convince there are many of these guys you see abroad. Many of these guys are Nigerian based, right? Maybe Nigeria that plays for maybe Saka. Saka plays in Arsenal and all that, right? If you can convince Saka or these US guys, as a US guy that plays in Florida and in Buccaneers, to come and open up to say his tax base is Nigeria and he wants to pay VAT, or if you want to pay him endorsements, go and pay to his Illiquidity local government area. That's where he wants to get his endorsement. That's the foreign capital you're looking for. You've got to be smart about this because he's a UK citizen, but he can say, I've opened up a company and I've domiciled that company in Nigeria, and that company will handle my international endorsements. So if you are Adidas and you want to sign up Saka, go to Nigeria and invoice in Nigeria. I don't think he will mind because he looks like a patriotic guy. Even with Anthony Joshua, every time he comes, we take picture with him, blah, blah, we let him go. If you tell Anthony Joshua to open up, okay, Anthony Joshua, just say your boxing glove endorsements will be done he's from Ogun State, right? He's from Ogun, put it in Ogun State. So if you want me to do endorsements for you, go to Ogun State and pay your VAT in Ogun State. It's possible because he's capturing transactions there. But you have to go and tell him. You have to get the structure right and then go show it to him and say, do this for us, right? Let me end it again with this. In Korea, I think it was in Japan or Korea, what they do, they said a charity, not charity, what's this word that they use for you don't do lottery? A lottery where your lottery ticket is your VAT receipt. And they give like $1 million. So what did that do? Immediately, every person started asking for a VAT receipt. Everybody. Because once you buy something, you don't have to pay for a lottery ticket. That thing you bought is your lottery ticket. Every week they announce lottery winners. Instant invoicing went up because every week if I buy a recharge card, I get a lottery ticket, I could win $1 million. So you've got to be a bit innovative about these things to grow. Additional, thanks for hanging out there with me. What did you like? What didn't you like? What's your take on what I've said so far? Additional, are you still there? Okay, additional is not there. Let me quickly go on I can read your comments, right? And if you want to speak, the floor is open for you. Let me read your comments real quick. Someone's asked me to explain what I mean by the 10% going. Let me go back to that slide. In the old act, right, consumption and land mass were 20%. What President Tinubu did was to make consumption and derivation 30% of the of VAT sharing. So what I'm saying, 10%, I'm saying from 20% to 30%. They've increased it by 10%. So when you consume in your state, the sharing of VAT in the horizontal formula is now 30%, right? Federal only gets 10%. So that sharing, first of all, to all states, is now going to be based on 30% derivation, which means if a call is made from Aba to Kwara, and Aba and Kwara do not claim that VAT, where will the VAT go to? It goes to the head office, which is in Lagos. That's why I'm saying Lagos still retains the potential, but you have got to work with the Nigerian Revenue Service to capture that part of the consumption that is yours. If you don't capture that part of the consumption that is yours, then you're not going to be able to claim that 30%. It's not automatic. If you look at we said you have to work with the Nigerian Revenue Service to put Revenue Service also as put them in the market and say, okay, Revenue Service, we're going to work with Omata or whoever it is, and we want you to track the VAT here. If they are tracking VAT there, then more VAT will come back to you. That's essentially it. It's a federal tax. VAT is supposed to be a local government tax, but Nigeria is federalized. So don't really argue too much. Just say, hey, I want to get this, and that's essentially what I'm going to get, right? Does that make sense? Okay, Deji. So let me go. I prefer you when you guys ask the questions so I can just add you on the mic to speak. If I have to read, what's it? Okay, just yeah. So why Kwara states? No, Kwara is just an example. I picked Kwara because Kwara, it doesn't have a port. Abia doesn't have a port. I'm just comparing two states in Nigeria without the advantages of a port or even federal presence. Kwara has some federal presence, not a lot of federal presence, right? So you can then say that, okay, let us compare Kwara and Abia and see what will happen. And we'll show you that there are big opportunities in those two states to take advantage of their unique attributes and then get more VAT. Casey, how are you doing? Casey.
Yeah, Carlo. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I can. Hey, hi. I've been following so far. What's your take on our VAT discussion?
Actually, I want to ask you a question.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. For instance, now, let me say I use a Medistem stockage brokers, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and in my form, during the registration, I used my state of residence as a boy, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if I do a transaction there, the VAT they charge me, where does it go? Is it to the head office or does it go to the state?
It goes to where Meristem is located, really, right? Because that's where they are paying their VAT to. That's where the consumption is happening. Where is Meristem? That's the point I make. Meristem is in Lagos, right? So even if you say you have your state of origin doesn't matter. It's where is Meristem or whatever brokerage firm, where are they invoicing their VAT? So you look at it this way. There's a Onitsha stock exchange, Abi. It's the same stock exchange. If you did your transaction there, you can argue that, okay, those guys will pay VAT in Onitsha. There's also, I think there's Abuja Stock Exchange. If you do it there, they will pay VAT in Abuja, but it's not your state of origin. If I'm from Abia and I import a car through the Lagos port, I'll pay the VAT in Lagos port. They're not going to go with my state of origin is Abia, so they'll send my VAT to Abia. No, but where is my company invoicing? So if I'm an importer and I say I registered in Abia, so I'll do input VAT and output VAT. What is going to matter is where am I invoicing? If I do my input VAT in the state and you take your output VAT in the state, who is the ultimate consumer? That's the person paying the VAT. You follow the points I'm making? Because if you are registering that car in Lagos, then you're going to pay the VAT in Lagos because you are doing the consumption in Lagos. But if you take that car to Ebonyi, and you register that car in Ebonyi, then the final person to use that car is in Ebonyi, right? So the Ebonyi person that has bought that car in your warehouse in Ebonyi has paid to the bank. That whole activity is captured in Ebonyi.
Okay, thank you.
That makes more sense, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm getting the same question online. People are asking, oh, there's someone the same version of what you're asking. When we say make the phone call, it's a cell tower, right? We're talking about the cell tower. So if you make a phone, that's how the telecom company would know. It's from the cell tower because they can tell where did the call terminate, where did the call and all that. And they can say, okay, this call was 1 minute. Our total cost for this call is 5 naira. From that 5 naira, the terminating guy gets 3 naira. They can do all that calculation and apportion that VAT to the state. So you have to go back to the point I'm making. You've got to, in your state, you go to those high, that's why I gave you the slide on the high VAT areas, the high VAT activities. It's not just to have a market, but the market has got to invoice. And now it's easier. You have all those POS machines. If you have POS machines, and those POS machines are doing less than 25 million a year, there's no VAT. So you can have POS like water, but if you're not invoicing more than 25 million, there's no VAT. But what if you said, okay, all VAT guys, I don't know, I don't give ideas on social media, but if you are able to capture all those POS and say all of us are going to be under one association or whatever, and that's what we're going to do our invoicing. Will that help? I don't start to give people ideas, but if you don't track and measure the transaction, you can't charge VAT on it. Lagos has an inbuilt advantage because the bulk of everything, the data, the telecoms, the systems are all coming from there, not even Abuja, from there. Same thing, look at the FDI, foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment. Where do they go through? Lagos banks, Abuja, because that's head office. Really, Lagos and Abuja are going to be your head office. So you've got to be smart and say, okay, since I know that banks are going to receive, if you borrow money, let's say you want to start a factory in Oyo State and you borrow money, your head office of that bank is in Lagos. Where is the bank going to book that loan? It's mostly in Lagos, especially if it's a high ticket loan. But can you ask the bank that question and say, why can't they book loan in Oyo State? Ask them. What's the thing? Because there's no reason. They can book it anywhere they want to book it. But because it's just booked in Lagos, that's booked in Lagos. But because you're not asking or demanding, I don't use the word demand, but you've got to ask these questions, right? That's why I'm going to Anthony Joshua and Saka. If you have people that you can use to attract consumption to your state, you've got to use them. If you have young people in your state that you can invest in and they will consume in your state, you've got to do that. The world is easier now. If you're a state governor, go to Starlinks and tell Starlinks how much will it cost you to put Starlink internet in my capital city. How much? $1 million? That you have that. If you have internet in your capital city, the youths are going to stay back. The youth will stay back. They'll start to do stuff in that state. Then you can start to then say, okay, now we have the youth staying back. Let's start to build an economy from the ground up. We'll start to build an economy, we educate them. There's IT is big now, but economies don't happen by accident. This does not happen by accident. They've got to have a plan. That's when I see governors building airports. It's kind of like, it's like it's money misroad. You have money, you don't know what to do with it. You have a governor in a state this guy's a former World Bank guy. You are building an airport in the same state where you have lots of unemployed youths, lots of traders. Just go to the main market in that state, put up internet, call it the state internet, whatever, and those traders wouldn't have to use that internet to talk to their suppliers in China through video. You can invoice from there. They can send money from that market to India. There are things you can do to boost growth, but you're building airports, People are not thinking. So I hope I answered your question. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You've got to build an economy with inputs. That's why I'm taking my time to explain this stuff to you about VAT. If you look online, there's lots of people are saying, oh, you have this, it's because of this. No, especially to the Southeast folks, right? You have markets, but those markets are not consolidated. You've got to bring those markets together. Again, there's no, in the whole of Nigeria, there's no Owerri made, there's no Abia made, there's no Enugu made, there's only Aba made. So if you have Aba made, what can you do with this? That means you're a cluster. But if you are below 25 billion, you can't do VAT. Can you cluster together and charge one VAT? Why do you think there's everywhere you go, the economic cluster is Hollywood, it's a cluster. Computer Village is a cluster. What can you do in that cluster? That's how you have to think. Yeah. All right, Casey, I hope I answered your question. Thank you so much. Let me try to read. Hey guys, help me out with this text. You guys read. Just go straight to the point with text, so I don't have to go too far. So just to be clear, you are saying that when we do VAT, the state, yes, so the federal government is collecting. They don't retain. They only retain about 10%. The federal government used to retain about 15%. VAT is not a federal tax. It is not, it's a funny, crazy arrangement where the federal government does not own the tax, is the one collecting the tax and telling people the rate at which they will collect that tax. Federal government has no business with VAT, none whatsoever. But their argument is that in the old sales tax structure, the states were not collecting a tax. How is that your business? If a state doesn't want to collect taxes, let them go into poverty. The federal government has absolutely no business with VAT, none. But they are cutting the VAT today to share. Why? Why would you share VAT? It makes no sense whatsoever. Company income tax, you can argue, okay, it's company income tax, but how can you share a consumption tax? You can argue that Nigerian Bottling Company or Coca-Cola is making Coke in Lagos, but that Coke is being drunk all over Nigeria. So therefore, all states should share the tax of Coke. You can make that argument. Not saying you'll be right, too, but you can make that argument. But how do you share consumption? How? Because we've seen here that it is the deliberate attraction of large-scale consumption that generates VAT. If you're not building consumption economies, why are you sharing VAT? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So, King, that's your answer to you. The federal government can't share VAT. Even the company income tax, why are they sharing it? I don't know, man. I mean, I'm doing this space so I can give you. There's no place where VAT is shared, right? It's consumption. In America, it's actually local government tax. Some local governments collect, some don't collect, and they have their own rates. Some will say we charge very, very high, we charge very, very low. Where I live is next to like an Indian reservation or somewhere there, and those guys don't collect VAT. They're not federal. They're not America. When you go to an Indian reservation, you're not in America. They don't collect sales taxes. Or you see guys in that place from China, from Canada, come to shop there because there's no tax. So you can shop there and not pay VAT in America. It's a loophole. And who do it all over? That's why you see casinos are usually located in Indian reservations. There's no tax because it's technically not America. So if you brought that system to Nigeria where states could compete based on VAT and fiscal, then you are competing. You can't ask states to compete when they're all the same. What is and this is to Alfred. Alfred, I see your question. You're saying VAT will not make a state competitive if they don't have infrastructure. That's not true. The number one state, if you look at ease of doing business in Nigeria, is Gombe State. Surprise, surprise. Gombe State is the number one state in Nigeria based on ease of doing business. How many of you guys know this? How many of you guys have gone to Gombe? I doubt many of you guys have gone there, right? But Gombe is not going to attract any substantial investment if the same VAT in Lagos is the same VAT in Gombe. In America, Texas, Florida have no personal income taxes. I know of when they do their sports deals, some players will say, we're not going to move to this club because we don't want to pay taxes in that state. If you allow Nigerian states to compete on the basis of payee, VAT, company income tax, then Gombe State can tell investors, we are number one in Nigeria in terms of policies and rules, and we will not charge you any tax. So many companies that are going to employ a lot of people will rush to Gombe and manufacture in Gombe because they're not going to pay VAT, they're not going to pay company income tax. But if you say everybody's the same, why would anybody go to Gombe? What's in Gombe, right? Because it's the same. Well, I'll stay in Lagos, but if there's an advantage of going to Gombe, then I'll go there. And that's the difference, King. That's why these things are very important. That we've got to compete. In America, they call states laboratories of excellence. So that way, a state can say, we want to do this, or that state will counter. That's what's going on, yeah? All right, folks, let me see. All right, fantastic. So, I prefer you guys speak because to read the text, I have to stop and read. If there's no issues, we can go to other two issues real quick, and I can just talk around them, and then we can call today. No, I had talked about there were two things that happened in Nigeria. I'll just speak about, right? One was the power sector. There's something to do with power in Nigeria, where we're trying to we're trying to put everybody on band A. Now, if you understand what's happening in Nigeria, there's no power. And I tried to understand why there was no power supply in Nigeria. The main thing is this: Nigerian power is too cheap. So if you want to bring an ABB or a Siemens to Nigeria, they won't come because if they invest, they can't get their money out. What I mean, they can't get their money out. The power rates are so cheap that it doesn't attract those big boys, right? So what needs to happen is that you have to increase the power tariffs. Because if you increase the power tariffs, then it has to make sense. But you can't increase power tariffs because Nigerians can't pay. So the problem Nigeria has been having since we started this power reform is how do we price power? For the last, I'll say 20 years, what we've done in Nigeria to say, okay, this is the real price of power, but we'll offer a subsidy. So that's what you hear, the multi-year tariff framework. What that was Nigeria said this is the real price of power, but we're subsidizing it. Now they've removed that subsidy, that's why you now have band A. So band A is supposed to be the real price that you pay. And now I'm hearing that they want to take away all the band B, band C, and put everybody on band A. If you notice that World Bank just pulled out of Nigeria because Nigeria we can't invest in power. Nobody will buy it. It's too expensive. The reason is that because Nigerians don't have money. Nigerians don't have money. So power is not expensive. Hear me clearly. Power is not expensive. We just can't afford it in Nigeria. It's expensive in Nigeria. If we earn 70,000 a month, you can't afford power. How much is band A? So to fix that, you don't need to. If you put everybody on band A, Nigerians will not use power again. I was in Lagos, right? I went to a barbering salon on Awolowo Road. When I went there, the place was open. There were people outside. But there was no one was cutting their hair. So I said, what's going on? And the barber said that you have to pay for power separate from cutting your hair. So you have to pay like maybe 10K. Then they'll put generator on, then they'll cut your hair. So all those guys that were waiting for someone that will come and agree to pay for power, they'll also cut their hair as well. So I paid the guy the power, whatever. As I paid the guy, all the barbers came out, everybody started cutting hair. Because once I cut my hair, everybody has to stop. So look, understand what I'm telling you. You had an SME that shut down because of no power. Because nobody can pay for power to cut his hair. Nobody. So they rather shut down the barbering salon till you pay for power. If you put everybody in band A, that's what you're going to see across the country. Nobody's going to pay for power. Beer people will tell you, if you want to drink beer, come and pay us 2 hours ahead of time. Then we'll chill your beer. Then you come back and we'll drink it. Beer. That's why you see Nigerians think that they go and watch soccer because they like to watch soccer in their group. It's not true. It's because nobody can afford to put generator on at home. So go to viewing centers to watch it because it's shared cost. It's not because you like to go to a viewing center. It's because we can't afford to put generator on to watch Chelsea beat Arsenal. That's why. So if you put everyone on band A, you are going to kill the economy because nobody is going to be able to afford it. When I mean nobody in the triangle of the base of the triangle would afford it. So this is what you are paid for in government, where you're thinking hats. You've got to subsidize power. Subsidy is a bad word, but you've got to subsidize power. For now, Nobody can afford it. And you can try it. You can try it. Put everybody on band A and see what happens. Tell me how many viewing centers, how many barbing salons, how many mama puts that will be open in Nigeria. How many restaurants would be able to cook food with AC on? Not a lot. How many guys will put AC on in Nigeria if you have band A? So that's one thing I was talking about. They've got to get a bit more innovative with power. If you want to give people solar, maybe close down Ministry of Power, take the money and get people to go and buy solar. That's better than charging everybody band aid. Nobody. That's the what's called demand destruction. Nobody can afford it. Yeah. If you want, I'll post the picture of the Babylon in Abolo. I don't know their name. I don't want to mention their name, but that's essentially what I saw. Let's go to pension reform. Same thing with pension reform, right? So they want to increase the amount that employers will pay. Now it's 8% for employees, 10% for employers, 18% of your paycheck. Your paycheck is your basic housing and transport. PENCOM, which is the regulator, wants to increase that to, I don't know what they want to increase to, but only the employers would pay. Again, they might have good intentions, but it's also going to be another demand destruction. Currently in Nigeria, they've hit a wall in terms of number of employees signing up. We went from 1 million, I think about less than 15 million. After that 15 million, you will struggle to find companies that are going to do pension because the pension scheme is an occupational pension scheme. If you tell an SME, let me pick again in Aba, a guy has got 20 employers. They are making shoes for him. He's already eyeing that 18%. He's saying, wow, I'm going to pay 10% because it's extra. You pay their salary, then you pay an extra 10% for them to be on pension reform. Again, just picture your mind to a guy in Aba that is making shoes and he has 25 workers. He's paying them salary, right? You want that guy to now pay not 10%, but you want to increase that guy's cost of doing business. It's not going to work. What will happen? The guy will simply tell his workers, you guys are all, either he put them on casual workers, so he doesn't have to pay them, or he will tell them, okay, I'm going to give you money, go and pay your pension by yourself. So you're going to drive people away when your goal should be to get more people to be in the scheme so that the cost even fall. They've done a good job. Nigerian pension scheme, in my view, is the best example of a public-private partnership in the whole of Africa. Literally, if you go to the whole world, Nigerian pension reform would rank top 3 of PPP projects in the entire world. Maybe Nigeria went from 25% deficit of that, so the pensions that were owing to workers was 25% of Nigeria's GDP as at 2022. To now, where we have about 13 trillion in long-term savings in Nigeria's pension industry. People are coming here to look at our pension scheme. Our pension scheme in Nigeria is more advanced than what they have in the US. Yeah, it's more advanced. In Nigeria, you have an account in your personal name secured by biometrics that is invested in your personal name. Americans don't have that. They have social security. They don't have that. We don't have social security, but the bulk of our scheme is very advanced. We have a custodian separate from an administrator. So lots of checks and balances. It's working. I'm not really sure why we need to increase the allocation. I don't know why, really. Maybe it's to boost the returns from new principal. But I just think you have to be very, very careful. You don't want people to run away from the scheme. You want to attract more people. And you've done a good job in saying if you are in the private sector, there are lots of guys like Awapa that is doing private enrollment of people. The goal should be to get more and more and more informal workers into the scheme, not to drive people out of the scheme, right? So almost the same thing. If you look at the power and look at the pension guys, it's almost the same thing. We want to increase costs, and those costs are going to cause demand destruction. No one is going to pay, not because they are protesting, but because they can't afford it. They just can't afford it. Same Nigerians that can't buy food, you have to pay for more power. I don't know how that's going to work. All right, folks. So That's just my take for the weekend. Like I said, this is a space I want you, if you know anyone in government, share this space with them, especially the guys in the Southeast government. You've got to get more serious with consolidating your markets. There's no point having large markets, right, if those markets are not consolidated or above 25 million that you can tax and do VAT as a group. If you don't do that, you're not going to get a lot of VAT. And then for all the other states in Nigeria, even as a whole, you've got to look at it and say, how can we grow consumption? If you can grow consumption within your state borders, you can grow VAT, and that VAT is what the state can then use to get itself better. Hey, Mr. Ayinla, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Good evening, sir.
What's going on, man?
I'm fine. Good evening, sir. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You're a bit cloudy. Your audio is a bit dull. I'm not sure what's going on.
It's better. Let me check. Hello? Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sir Kari. I appreciate it. So, sir, please, I want to ask some questions. There are some of your posts that I've read about that is kind of confusing to me. And I wouldn't mind if I can just clarify some of it to you, please. And it has to do with this current administration debt profile. I don't know if I can go ahead to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the thing is, when this current administration came on board in 2023, we were meant to understand that net reserve was like $3 billion or below, and foreign reserve was below maybe 13 billion or so, how much they call it, and so on and so forth, right? But just recently, there's this celebration of foreign reserve going above $52 billion and net reserve above $40-something billion and all. Talking about the macroeconomic stability and it. Now, my question is, you often like post that this administration has borrowed like more money than any previous administration in the past, right? But when I try to go do some like online finance and research myself, I was meant to understand that it's as a result of dollar devaluation of the currency. That during the period of one that we had I think around 89 to 3 trillion total debt profile. The ratio, the dollar was the debt was being accounted for at the rate of 460 naira to dollar, right? So when Tinubu administration came in and devalued the currency, that was why it kind of tripled to like 156 trillion naira. Please, I want to know if it's called dollar devaluation. One, two is that how did the government be able to grow the how did the government be able to grow the foreign reserve from what it was relative to above $50 billion? I'm trying to understand that this treasury bill, bonds, and everything. You know what the government is using to like patch the net reserve and foreign reserve. I'm trying to understand that. Can you explain to me?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to understand your question, you're basically asking, hey, the Nigerian debt has gone up, and that when you want to confirm if that debt has gone up because of organic borrowing or just because we revalued the naira, then the naira devaluation has pushed the debt up, right? That's your first question, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's both of them. The Nigerian debt has gone up because Nigeria borrowed and because Nigeria devalued. It's both of them. the dollar debt went up. Nigeria has borrowed a lot of dollars from the World Bank primarily under the Tinubu administration. I'm sure you saw the 20 billion request that was approved through the Senate and all that. So we've done a lot of new organic borrowing under the administration of Bola Tinubu. Also, because we have a devaluation of the Naira debt has also gone up when you convert it to Naira, right? The dollar to Naira, it has also gone up. So our debt servicing has also gone up, but it's both of them. We have borrowed a lot. I mean, Coastal Road is borrowed now. We borrowed from Deutsche Bank. We also borrowed. We used this new steel project we're doing in Lagos Port. The money is also borrowed. We're borrowing to repay existing debt currently. So it's both of them. It's both of them. I'm being very, very honest with you. It's not even the ways and means. The last admin borrowed about 22 trillion, but I know Tinubu also did about 7 trillion to make it all complete and just making it into a bond and all that. So yes, we have borrowed this is new dollars, and we have also devalued. So both of them are adding up. Then I think your second question, you are asking about how yeah, many things have occurred. Number one, if you look at number one, what was Buhari doing wrong? Buhari was paying subsidy. What is subsidy payment? Subsidy payment means that when Nigeria was earning money from crude oil under Buhari, the crude oil, the dollars was not going to JP Morgan, who are our bankers. We're using that money from NNPC directly to pay fuel subsidy. So when NNPC imports PMS, they will say we made a loss of $1 million. They will take the money from that money that was supposed to go to FARC. That's what was going on. So I think if you can Google, you'll see a report. This is not a Nigerian report. You see a report by JP Morgan that was saying that out of all the oil countries that it banks their money, it was only Nigeria that did not increase their foreign deposits when oil prices went high. This was JP Morgan saying so, not NNPC, or JP Morgan saying that was going on. So what Tinubu has done, again to his credit, was to plug all those subsidy and all those extra payments NNPC was making. He said, first of all, NNPC should report to CBN for fiscal matters. So NNPC cannot go on their own and take money on their own and spend. They have to request from CBN to spend. Then he said, all those 30% you are paying here, 20% you are paying here, make sure the money goes 100% to the CBN. Before, don't take any deductions, even though if you look at the Petroleum Industry Act, there are deductions for Frontier Fund, there are deductions for something else. He said, no, cancel all that. Everything should go to the CBN. If you then want to take money, do a request and we'll give you. So because all the monies are now flowing to the Central Bank of Nigeria, the reserves are going up. That's number one. Number two, Nigeria is now, we are borrowing a lot. When you hear the word foreign portfolio investment, what it means is that somebody is buying a security in Nigeria. It could be a bond, it could be equity, it could be a loan, but somebody is investing in something in Nigeria. A bank can open up a letter of credit, for instance, or a bank can open up a Euro bond paper, and I or a trader in the US can invest in that Euro bond paper. That's foreign portfolio investment. That money goes to the Central Bank of Nigeria. So when you add up this blockage of NNPC spending, you add up the funds that are coming through foreign portfolio investments, you add it all up, you add the increase in the price of crude oil that is now coming to Nigeria. All that gives you why the Naira has strength. Again, they removed the peg. The big thing was they removed the dollar peg, which meant there was no subsidy on dollar. The reason why your reserves were falling under Buhari was because the dollar was subsidized. So if I want to be a billionaire in Nigeria, I can write a paper and say I want to import medical equipment. And if they approve that for me, I don't import anything. I just get my dollar from CBN at 500 and I sell to black market at 1,000. and I become a billionaire. But because you've removed the devaluation, there is no more opportunity for anyone to get dollar at 500 and sell at 1,000. So what do you think happened? Nobody goes to CBN for dollars anymore. I now see your banks giving you dollar card to spend abroad. Nobody's going to CBN anymore because there's no more opportunity with CBN dollar. There's no more. So when you look at all these things, that's why the dollar currency reserve, the CBN.
Thank you. I think you really break it down to me. I really appreciate. So now, please, in addition, do you think this is sustainable? That's one. And secondly, what can the government do, to increase the purchasing power of the people? Because you're talking about this pension scheme, increasing the the charges, like the monthly charges, budget reduction from workers' salary and everything. I believe if the salary of workers are or the purchasing power increase, I'm not sure it's going to be an issue, right? So what can the government do? Because when you go online, everybody say the macroeconomy is stabilized, but the effect is not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know people that work. Maybe they are getting high pay, maybe I can't really defend that.
Yeah,
but what can the government do to really bring it down so that the purchasing power of the people will high? So even these pension scheme ideas can also work. And this issue of borrowing to finance the foreign reserve and everything, is that how other countries do it? And is Nigeria sustainable?
You're asking many questions. So let's go to your first question. The first question you are asking, is this sustainable? Nigerian economy is a derivative of Brent crude oil. What I mean is that the long-term stability of Nigeria's economy depends on the price and volume of Brent crude Nigeria can sell. So right now, when you hear the World Bank, people are confusing the World Bank. When the World Bank says Nigeria's macroeconomic variables are stable, what are they saying? They are saying that Nigeria can pay back its debt. They are not saying that the price of Gary has fallen. Their concern is, can Nigeria pay back its debt? Because the IMF is interested in balance of payments. So when Nigeria has gotten a lot of foreign capital in, that means we can pay back debt. So they are saying the economy is stabilized. They don't mean that Gary is now cheaper. They don't care about Gary being cheap. They care about Nigeria paying back its debt. That's what they mean. So if oil prices remain at $100 a barrel, and Nigeria can ramp up production from the 1.5 in crude oil alone, and we start looking at 1.8, 1.9, my brother, go and sell your dollars. Just go and sell your dollars, because Naira is going to become about maybe 1,200 or even 1,000. If oil does well and we pump more oil, the Naira gets stronger, the economy becomes stronger, the Naira becomes very, very, very strong. But if oil starts to go down to 65 and production is stuck at 1.5, then we're in trouble. Because I noticed that the president has increased revenues. This president, we should be calling Tinubu the revenue president. He can increase revenues. He has increased revenues to double, and it's going to triple. The problem he has is that he's spending too much. So yeah, we're going to do 2 army divisions. I support it. It's long in coming. We've done 2 divisions. We are going to increase ASU salaries. We're going to increase expenses across the board in Nigeria. There's no money for that. You can't build coastal road, build a road from Sokoto to Lagos, do everything he wants to do, 40% increase on ASU with the budget that he has. It's like a man saying, I want to go to America and live in Beverly Hills, but I want to do it with 100,000 naira. It's not going to work. You have to cut your coat according to your cloth, not your size. Nigeria is still spending as if we have $20 billion. So you've got to cut your coat. That's the problem with Tinubu spending too much. But revenues are coming in. So that's the issue. If oil is up and production is going up, the Nigerian economy will keep on doing well. Because we haven't diversified the economic inflow. We've diversified the economy, but haven't diversified the income, dollar income. I think your last question is, what can the government do to increase the purchasing power? The government has got to make the economy more productive. It's got to fix the power sector. If power is fixed in Nigeria, the economy will double. It will go from the current, right now, it's about 300 billion, right? It will go to 600 billion. Remember that Nigeria was nearly about 500 to 800 billion, depending on who you look at. That was our economy in 2014. 500 to 800 billion. Take your pick. If you fix power, and when I mean fix power, I don't mean that there's power 24/7. No. I mean that if you are a factory and you want power for 18 hours, guaranteed, and you can get that power at a price that's affordable for just 18, let's even say 12 hours, guaranteed, then the economy will double. Remember the example I gave you? That barber shop closed down, was waiting for the customer that would come in and pay for power to, so all the other barbers can cut people's hair. So imagine people go and wait in a barbing salon till somebody comes to pay for power, then they can cut their hair. You are killing time, you are not productive. But if that guy can get, even if he can work from 8 o'clock to 2 p.m. and he knows there's power and he knows he's going to pay X amount, then he just has to go do marketing. His shop will double capacity. That's how the economy doubles. So if you want to boost the purchasing power of the Nigerian economy, make the economy more productive. If the economy is more productive, there are more jobs, there's more wealth, and prices will fall. Right now, there is nothing going on in the country. There are no jobs. There is high cost of doing business. Infrastructure is very, very weak. When we have a rainfall, the major economic capital of the country, not just of the country of West Africa, shuts down. I'm not talking about the big rain that falls with the floods. I mean just normal, common rain. There will be roads will be flooded. Forget the flood one. Those ones are weather. I'm saying if it rains for 3 or 4 hours in the most important capital city in West Africa, the city is shut down. You can't have that. You can't have that. It doesn't matter what tribe or political party you support. You just can't have that. So if you fix what's in front of you, I hear them talking AI. Fix the thing in front of you. There's no power, there's no road. Just fix it. Then every other thing will take care of itself. I see you dropped up, but I think I was able to answer a few of your questions. So I hope, you got that right. Guys, let me read your tweets and then we'll just call it today. Somebody is asking we've talked about why government is sharing VAT. We've said it before. The federal government should not share VAT. It shouldn't do that. It's not possible. The federal government the federal government can tax if it wants to, but it cannot go and share VAT, which is a consumption tax generated within the borders of the state. So that's wrong, ab initio. And I'm saying if you allow states, not just VAT, payee, company income tax, let states be able to register companies. So if I was in Abia State and I could register companies, what would I do if I was a governor? I would go to that Aba market and tell that line. So when you go to markets in Onitsha and Aba, they do what they call line. So if you're doing textiles, you'll be in textile line. If you are doing spare parts, a spare parts line. I'll tell everyone in that line to go and register under one company. One company. And that company will charge their VAT and all that. They can have their individual profit too. But if I sell something, I want to invoice it, I use that POS and do the invoicing. So all the exports I'm doing to Cameroon, to Central African Republic, I invoice it on that line. But you can't do it now because the federal government does company registration. Look at South Korea. They had all these small mushroom companies and they all come together as a family, continental chambers they call them, and because of economies of scale they can do more. So you've got to think local but act global. You've all these small mushroom markets, make them bigger, consolidate them. So at a surface level, they look very, very big. You can attract capital into the market. You can attract best practice. But if you are doing Okoro and Sons, the import-export, it's too small. It's too small, and that's why you can't attract credit. But if you combine all the cooperatives into one entity, and that entity goes to a bank and says, we have 5,000 members, turnover from us is $1 billion. We want you to give us a line of credit of 10 billion. You get it. But if you are going individually, They're not going to give you anything. So that's just how you want to approach these things. You've got to change. Nothing is small. It's always small in context of what? Nothing is big. It's big in context of what? Right? If you don't make yourself big, then you remain small. Even if you are small, make yourself big so you can get economics of scale. That's the point I'm making with all this. You have to go and make your market, formalize your market. And formalizing doesn't mean you go and say you must register and you start to charge for VAT. You've got to say, this company or these guys are in this line, this is their name, this is their RC number, these are their officers, this is their constitution. They are a company or they're incorporated trustees, but they are the ones mandated to do business in this place or in this area. In America, they have unions. I know guys like a gatekeeper. If you're not in a union, you can't get in. They have their own gatekeepers, So if you formalize things, you make that thing an institution, then that institution can then build scale and can attract capital and can even do standards. And that's what you basically grow and have to get consumption to come. If you don't do it that way, you're just going to remain small. That's why you have ECOWAS, you have African market, you have EU. That's why you have all that. Because if you just stay as Netherlands, France, and Spain, you are nothing. But if you come as EU, then you're something. That's the whole idea, African Continental Free Trade Zone. So that's what I'm going to with that. Just this one is saying, we'll talk about this. Yeah, we've talked about this. So again, you've got to be, that's the point I make. This is a great space. Record this space, play it back and listen to it again. You will see lots of nuggets I've shared here. This is like consultancy stuff. And I'm doing it because I want states to be able to grow. I'm not advocating that you increase VAT. I'm saying already in those markets, you're already paying VAT, but it's not being captured in that market. VAT is like, what I put it, it's going to be captured irrespective, but it's not being captured in your market. If you want it to come to your market, because President Tinubu has said 30% consumption can be captured in a market or in a state or local government area. Same with the local government area. If you have schools and all that, you might not be able to VAT schools, but you can VAT the activities around those schools. All the schools can come together and say, okay, if you're going to pay school fees, you're going to pay school fees to this place, to this bank. And that whole bank, that VAT that got in there now stays back in the state or in the local government area. So you've got to be smart about these things. If you leave it alone, it will go out. All those POS, where is their VAT going to? I expect the government to ask, all these POS guys under umbrella, where are you paying your VAT to? You're going to ask that question and wait for an answer. And that's basically how you do it. Every state has got to grow VAT. No state. It's a parasite. It's just that no state is organized. Most states are more organized than the other. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to me on this Sunday. I'll let you guys go now. And I hope you guys will be back here next week again when we take on that topic. We've talked a lot today, VAT, power, and of course, even the pension guys, giving our own take for the big boys to listen to us. Again, don't forget, guys, I do have my book out. Let's talk about your money. Way that you can subscribe and basically learn about personal finance, all my years of experience, all in there. We're also working on a personal finance app. It's fantastic. I've seen the draft already, or do we say the test models of a personal finance app, where you can essentially plug in your income. It does everything for you. You do your income, you do your insurance, it does your payee, it tells you how financially secure you are. It gives you lots of suggestions, and it's simple. You don't have to be a finance guy to use it. So we're going to release it slowly. We'll do a space, show you guys the screens. It's fantastic. You can do it without knowing stuff about money, and I think it really help a lot of you. You can manage your debt with that app. You tell it, this is what I'm owing. It will tell you, this is how you should pay it, and this is what you save if you pay. It's going to give you scenarios, it marks to market, and all that. It's not a trading app. You can't buy and sell anything with it. It's more of you plug in what you have, what you're doing, and it gives you answers. So it's going to come up pretty soon. And of course, you guys are going to be the first to hear about it once it's out. But thank you guys for listening to me, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one, and bye.